A thin strip of yellow sand divides two massive worlds. For centuries, merchants looked at this desert barrier with frustration. East and west remained separated by a brutal, long voyage. To trade silk and spices, ships had to sail around the entire continent of Africa. It was a perilous journey of thousands of miles. Sailors risked storms, disease, and pirates. But the dream of water flowing through the desert is ancient. Long before steamships, the Pharaohs of Egypt carved the earth. They sought to bind the Nile to the Red Sea. Pharaoh Senusret, and later Necho II, initiated the Canal of the Pharaohs. It was a primitive waterway, silting up constantly. The desert sands were relentless, always trying to reclaim the land. Centuries passed. Empires rose and fell. The canal vanished under the dunes. The idea lay dormant until a conqueror arrived. Napoleon Bonaparte landed in Egypt in 1798 with a vision. Napoleon wanted to destroy British trade dominance. He ordered his engineers to survey the land. They made a critical mistake. They calculated the Red Sea was higher than the Mediterranean. They feared a canal would cause a catastrophic flood. The project was abandoned. It would take another 50 years, and a man with no engineering degree to prove them wrong. Enter Ferdinand de Lesseps. He was a French diplomat, charming and persistent. He was not an engineer, but he was a visionary who refused to believe the old calculations. De Lesseps had a friendship with the Viceroy of Egypt, Said Pasha. In 1854, he used this bond to secure a concession. He was granted permission to pierce the isthmus. The Suez Canal Company was formed, but the British Empire was furious. They saw the canal as a French plot to undermine their naval power. They launched a smear campaign. Despite the opposition, construction began in 1859. It started not with machines, but with bare hands. Peasants were drafted into forced labor, known as the corvée system. The conditions were hellish. There was no fresh water. Cholera swept through the camps. It is estimated that thousands of workers died in these early, brutal years of digging. International pressure eventually forced the end of slave labor. De Lesseps had to pivot. He brought in the Industrial Revolution. Massive steam-powered dredgers and excavators arrived from Europe. These metal beasts could do the work of hundreds of men. They clawed at the seabed and widened the trench. The canal began to take its modern shape. It took 10 years of struggle, bankruptcy scares, and political maneuvering. But finally, the waters of the Mediterranean and the Red Sea were ready to meet. November 1869. The inauguration was the party of the century. Royals from across Europe arrived. Even the Empress Eugénie of France was there to bless the waterway. A flotilla of ships sailed through for the first time. The opera Aida was commissioned by Verdi to celebrate, though it wasn't finished in time for the opening night. The world had changed. The voyage from London to Mumbai was cut by over 4,000 miles. The canal became the most important glorious artery of global trade. But Egypt was drowning in debt from the lavish project. In 1875, the Khedive was forced to sell his shares. Britain, who once opposed the canal, pounced. Prime Minister Disraeli bought the shares for the Queen. Britain now controlled the shortcut to India. The canal became the jugular vein of the empire. For the next several decades, the canal was a British military zone. During 2 world wars, it was fiercely defended. Losing the canal meant losing the war. Axis planes dropped mines into the water to choke the supply lines. Ships had to be degaussed to avoid explosions. It was a lifeline under constant threat. Post-war Egypt was changing. Nationalism was rising. In 1952, a revolution brought Gamal Abdel Nasser to power. He wanted Egypt to control its own destiny and its own resources. July 26, 1956. Nasser shocked the world. He nationalized the Suez Canal Company. He declared that the profits would build the Aswan High Dam, not line foreign pockets. Britain and France were outraged. They secretly colluded with Israel to invade Egypt and retake the canal by force. This was the Suez Crisis. Paratroopers dropped from the sky. Port Said was bombed. The invaders achieved their military goals, but they failed to understand the New World Order. Nasser responded by sinking 40 ships inside the canal, blocking it completely. The waterway became a stagnant trap. The world's oil supply was cut off. The United States and the Soviet Union, usually enemies, agreed on one thing: the invasion must end. Britain and France were humiliated and forced to withdraw. It was the end of the British Empire and the rise of Egypt. The canal was cleared and reopened, now firmly under Egyptian control. But peace did not last. The 1967 Six-Day War turned the canal into a front line again. It was shut down for 8 long years. 15 ships were trapped inside the Great Bitter Lake, which is a widening in the Suez Canal. They became known as the Yellow Fleet because of the desert sand that coated their decks over the years. The sailors formed their own society, sharing food and movies while wars raged around them. They remained stranded until the canal finally reopened in 1975. Today, the canal is a beast of efficiency. It handles over 10% of global trade. Massive container ships like floating cities glide through the sand. 2015, Egypt completed a massive expansion. The new Suez Canal allows two-way traffic, doubling the capacity. It was a feat of modern engineering. Yet the canal remains fragile. In 2021, the Ever Given, a monster of a ship, lost control and wedged itself across the banks. For 6 days, the world held its breath. Global supply chains froze. It was a stark reminder of how much we rely on this narrow ditch in the desert. The ship was freed and trade resumed. But the lesson was clear. The Suez Canal is not just water and sand. It is the heartbeat of the modern economy. From the dreams of Pharaohs to the ambition of de Lesseps and the nationalism of Nasser, this waterway has shaped history. It has caused wars, created empires, and connected humanity. It is a testament to our will to overcome nature no matter the cost. As long as the world trades, the ships will continue to sail through the sand. The Suez Canal remains the bridge between East and West.